Text 12. Sam Tvang Harir Anudhyatas Tatpungsam Api Samataha Katang Tu Abhadyam Kritavan Anushikshang Satang Vratam Satvang Harir Anyudatas Tatpungsam Api Samataham Katam Tvavadyam Kritavan Anushikshang Satam Vratam Satvang Harir Anudhyatas Tatpungsam Api Samataham Katam Tvavadyam Kritavam Anushiksham Satam Vratam Satvang Harir Anudhyatas Tatpungsam Api Samataham Katam Tvavadyam Kritavan Anushiksham Satam Vratam Nutyatas Anybody else? Ladies? Anybody else? Okay, let's read word by word. Please repeat. Saham, that person. Tvam, you. Harehe, by the Supreme Lord. Anudyataha, being always remembered. Tat, his. Pungsam, by the devotees. Api, also. Samataha, esteemed. Katam, why? Tu, then. Abhadyam, abominable act. Kritavan, you have undertaken. Anushikshang, setting the example. Satam, of saintly persons. Vratam, a vow. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Because you are a pure devotee of the Lord is always thinking of you, and you are also recognized by all His confidential devotees. Your life is meant for exemplary behavior. I am therefore surprised. Why have you undertaken undertaken such an abominable task. Once again, because you are a pure devotee of the Lord is always thinking of you, and you are always recognized by all his confidential devotees. Your life is meant for exemplary behavior. I am therefore surprised. Why have you undertaken such an abominable task? Purport. Dhruva Maharaj was a pure devotee and was accustomed to always be thinking of the Lord. Reciprocally, the Lord always thinks of those pure devotees who think of him only 24 hours a day. As a pure devotee does not know anything beyond the Lord, so the Lord does not know anything beyond his pure devotee. Swayambhuva Manu pointed out this fact to Dhruva Maharaj. Not only are you a pure devotee, but you are recognized by all pure devotees of the Lord. You should always act in such an exemplary way that others may learn from you. Under the circumstances, it is surprising that you have killed so many faultless yakshas. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyanangina Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Namo Prabhupada Priyarasaya Jagannatha Yatra Anandamurtaye Bhakta Sukaya Krishnot-kirtanena Nrisinghena Rakshataya Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadi Shatarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhaktashaktikam Sankarshana Karanato Yashai Garbhodashai Chapayobdishai Sheshascha Kala Sanityanandakhyarama Sharanam Mamastu Namo Mahabaranjaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Goratvise Namaha Namaste Halagraha Namaste Mushalayuda Namaste Revatikanta Namaste Bhaktavatsala Namaste Dharanidhara Namaste Balaram Shishtra Pralambari Namaste Stui Himam Krishna Purvaja He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dhinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopipakanta Radhakanta Namostute Jayatam Surato Pangor Mamamanda Matirgati Matsarvasva Padam Vajo Radhamadana Mohana Divyat Vrindaranya Kalpadru Mada Srimad Ratangara Simhasanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govindadev Prashtalivi Savimana Usmarami Srimandra Sarasaram Vivam Siva Tatatastitaha Karsham Veno Swanar Gopir Gopinata Shriyesunaha Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So once again the verse. Satvam Hareranudyyatas tatpungsam api samataha kathang tvavadyam kritavan anushikshan satam vratam. Because you are a pure devotee of the Lord is always thinking of you, and you are also recognized by all his confidential devotees. Your life is meant for exemplary behavior. I am therefore surprised. Why have you undertaken such an abominable task? So this is Manu Maharaj. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we can read one more verse, no problem. So this is 12. So 13, 14, yeah? So 14. Samprasane Bhagavati Purusha Prakrityar Gunahi Vimukto Jivanirmukto Brahmanirvanam Richati. Translation. One who actually satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead during one's lifetime becomes liberated from the gross and subtle material conditions. Thus, being freed from all material modes of nature, he achieves unlimited spiritual bliss. Purport. In the previous verse, it has been explained that one should treat all living entities with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. By such behavior, one satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and upon his satisfaction, the devotee immediately becomes free from all material conditions. The Lord also confirms this in Bhagavad Gita. Anyone who sincerely and seriously engages in my service immediately becomes situated in the transcendental stage wherein he can enjoy unlimited spiritual bliss. Everyone in this material world is struggling hard in order to achieve blissful life. Unfortunately, people do not know how to achieve it. Atheists do not believe in God, and certainly they do not please Him. Here it is clearly said that upon pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one immediately attains the spiritual platform and enjoys unlimited blissful life. To become free from material existence means to become free from the influence of material nature. The word samprasanne, which is used in this verse, means being satisfied. A person should act in such a way that the Lord is satisfied by the activity. It is not that he himself is to be satisfied. Of course, when the Lord is satisfied, the devotee automatically becomes satisfied. This is the secret of the process of Bhakti Yoga. Outside of Bhakti Yoga, everyone is trying to satisfy himself. No one is trying to satisfy the Lord. Karmis grossly try to satisfy their senses, but even those who are elevated to the platform of knowledge also try to satisfy themselves in a subtle form. Karmis try to satisfy themselves by sense gratification, and Jnanis try to satisfy themselves by subtle activities or mental speculation and thinking themselves to be God. Yogis also try to satisfy themselves by thinking that they can achieve different mystic perfections. But only devotees try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee's process of self-realization is completely different from the process of the karmis, jnanis, and yogis. Everyone else is trying to satisfy himself, whereas the devotee tries only to satisfy the Lord. The devotional process is completely different from the others. By working to please the Lord, by engaging his senses in the Lord's loving service, the devotee is immediately situated on the transcendental platform and he enjoys unlimited blissful life. Hare Krishna. So this is Manu speaking, Swayambhuva Manu. Who knows who is Swayambhuva Manu? He's the grandfather of Dhruva Maharaj. So Swayambhuva Manu is the son of whom? Nein, nicht spekulieren. So who's the father of Swayambhuva Manu? No one else than Brahma himself. So the four-headed Brahma, who is taking the charge of the Rajaguna and is also responsible for creation, the secondary creation, he manifests Swayambhuva Manu as one of the main patriarchs, one of the main sons or patriarchs, and a patriarch means a father of many children. So Swayambhuva Manu is populating the entire universe. So Swayambhuva Manu is in a very powerful position, and actually Swayambhuva Manu, for example, is more powerful than Indra himself. So the reign of Manu, I forgot the exact number, but there are 14 Manus in one day of Brahma. So we can divide 4.32 billion years divided by 14. That's the life duration of Swayambhuva Manu. So he lives very, very long, very, very powerful. And Swayambhuva Manu is also the first among the 14 Manus. And right now we are in the Vaivasvata Manvantara. So a Manvantara is the era one Manu reigns. So there, and each Manvantara, each reign of a Manu is named after the respective Manu himself. So currently we are in the Vaivasvata Manvantara. Why Vaivasvata Manvantara? Because currently Vivasvan, who is Vivasvan? Who knows? Huh? Yeah, it's the current sun god as well. So he's the Manu as well. And so Vaivasvata Manvantara. And the seventh, so we are in the 50th birthday of Brahma since a very, very long time. It's his 50th birthday. And not only that, it's midday as well. So midday on the... so what I'm trying to give a little bit context, so that means that if Swayambhuva Manu is talking here to Dhruva Maharaj, this story is very, very, very old. So it's the first Manu. We are currently in the 7th Manu, and 6 more to come. And here the story is taking place during the time of Swayambhuva Manu, the first Manu. Shri Shri Prahlad Lakshmani Singhadev Bhagavan Ki Jai. And why else is Manu very important or famous?
For compiling the laws of Manu?
Yes, the Manu Smriti. So many people are a little bit confused when they read the Manu Smriti, because some of the laws that he gives seem to be a little bit, I don't know, archaic or extreme maybe. But it's very important to read the entire text, and then you will get context. So if you read the entire text, Manu is very fair, absolutely fair. And with more responsibility, comes more, how you say, more repercussions also for your actions, and also Manu. The Manu Smriti, Srila Prabhupada even talks about a few times in his purports that they're relevant for us. They should be relevant for us. They might not be applicable nowadays because, of course, we have currently in most places in the world have Roman or English law system kind of. But the Manu Smriti would be the traditional system, and it's very important to have the entire system, the entire text. Not take some small, parts and then, focus on those only. Then you will misunderstand. But Manu is considered, therefore, to be the father of humanity. So, man, the word man in English is actually derived from the word Manu. The word Manu is very ancient word, and many modern words in many Latin or other languages are related to that word. Manu. So much so that there is one place in Peru, and this is very famous national park. It's called the Manu National Park. And the reason why it's called Manu National Park is because this is one of the places on earth where there are most variety of living entities. And Manu was known in the Bhagavatam, in the Shastras, to have created all kinds of different living entities. So he had the duty from Brahma to procreate, not only human species, but also all kinds of animal species. We can read in the Bhagavatam. So this national park is very famous because every single day, the scientists that are setting camp there, they discover thousands and hundreds of new species, every day. And this is mind-boggling, of course, but mainly insects, but also sometimes new mammals, all kinds of birds. Every day they find new species, and also they realize that many species might be extinguished before they even find them. So I read a very extensive article on this one time, and this description of this Manu National Park, the scientists were also estimating what is the total amount of living entities in total, and their estimations were different numbers, like 12 million different species, or 9 million, and then they quoted Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada, based on the Vedic texts and the Puranas, says that there are 8,400,000 different species of life. And the scientists were very intrigued that the Vedas had such a accurate, specific number, because this number is also subdivided, in 1.1 million insects, I think 900,000 aquatics, 400,000 humans. I forgot all the rest, but this 8,400,000 is divided into very specific classifications, and they said this is very likely that this is true. Their calculations, their estimations were going in that direction, and at that point, this is maybe 16 years ago, when I was a brahmachari distributing books, I read this magazine while the devotees were putting gas in the car. I was in Maya and I was reading magazines. And then Prabhupada came back to me in the magazine. And this estimation they had, maybe like 15, 20 years ago, was that the number they had counted until that time, globally, was 2,800,000. It was the amount of species they had discovered. And their estimations were, like I said, 12 or 8 million, 12 or 9 million. But they found that this number given in the Vedas and by Srila Prabhupada very likely is correct. So this is Manu, just to give a little bit context. So he's the father of humanity and the father of all species, ultimately also. He gives the laws of mankind. And so in the previous chapters, we have been hearing the story of Dhruva Maharaj, very amazing story, how he as a child, escaped the palace and became a great accomplished yogi, had direct darshan of the Lord, and then assumed the role of a very powerful king. And the previous chapter was dealing with his campaign of revenge. So even he was a very exalted devotee, very advanced, very loved and appreciated, like it said here, by sages and great personalities. Still, he went on a campaign of revenge. So his brother was killed by yakshas, in a tour in the Himalayas. Yakshas killed his brother, and he went on a campaign of revenge. And he went to fight the yakshas. And there is a very amazing picture, actually, of this. We have the original painting of this from the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust books in the Nrsimha office. Because the yakshas attacked him, and the yakshas are a very powerful race of warriors. They actually are the servants or the ganas, the companions of Kuvera. So Kuvera, Kuvera is the treasurer of the demigods. Among the devatas, he's the treasurer. And the yakshas are his followers. So they're very wealthy, very powerful, and also they have many mystical powers. Many mystical powers. They're described as being, in appearance, a little bit intimidating, maybe. They supposed to have some kind of fangs, but very beautiful, very opulent. And they have mystical powers. So when Dhruva Maharaj attacked the Jakshas, the city of the Jakshas, there was like a epic battle, started, and the Jakshas, of course, offered a very powerful resistance, and they were able to use all kind of illusory weapons. So by the power of illusion, they could manifest, all kinds of animals, all kinds of weapons, stones, rocks, entire mountains. They manifested. They were flying at Dhruva. And Dhruva was seeing these illusions and was shocked. And the power of illusion we should not underestimate. Illusion is so powerful that it can actually create real harm. Because it's just an illusion, but if you are, unable to see through the illusion, you will suffer and you will be harmed. And there's a very crass example that Sachinandan Maharaj sometimes tells about his father, who was one of the managers in the German railways. And it occurred many years ago, maybe in the 70s or something, or 80s, that one worker in the German railways, he was closing a freezer wagon. It was like freezer wagon to transport, goods, like a big freezer on wheels, basically, for the train. And he was closing that freezer wagon, and by mistake, he closed himself inside the freezer wagon. And he couldn't go out. So all night he was, shivering and freezing inside there. And then I think the next morning, or like so and so many hours later, he was rescued. Because of course he was banging against the walls and screaming. And when he was rescued, he had frostbite. Means all his fingers, his nose, was all frozen. But twist of the story. The freezer wagon was not turned on. But he was convinced he is in a freezer wagon, so he got frostbite. So that's the power of illusion. And very often, like people who are in depression, for example, if you are depressed, you just think, very badly, very negatively, and you become depressed, you become sick, you become, without motivation, and you... Just because of a thought, we can harm ourselves or elevate ourselves also. So the power of the mind, or you could say subtle power, is always more powerful than, or you could say subtle elements, subtle energy is always more powerful than gross energy. This is the principle that we promote, is not evolution. We have a very accomplished scientist in our movement in ISKCON. His name is Chaduratma Prabhu, Professor de Cremo, his legal name, and he has published many books. And one book is Human Devolution, because there's the idea of evolution. Basically, everything from gross matter becomes more and more evolved. But of course, our idea is Sankhya Yoga, and another way to say Sankhya Yoga is devolution. Sankhya Yoga is a devolution from a very subtle origin, ultimately Brahman, spirit, the Atma, or Krishna ultimately. It devolves into different gross layers of manifestation. And the subtle is always more powerful than the gross. The subtle manifests the gross. So this illusion that the Jakshas were projecting was incredibly powerful. Like if you would see this, just by seeing this, you would just get a heart attack and die probably, Too much, So Dhruva was somehow, fighting against it, trying to avoid it. And then he realized the only way I can overcome this is by taking shelter of Vishnu. So he took shelter of the Narayana Kavacha. He invoked the Narayana Kavacha, which is also a very famous set of mantras, Narayana Kavacha. He was able to, by taking shelter in the holy name, he was able to suddenly overcome this illusion, and he could see nothing is there. There is no mountains flying, no lions and serpents and elephants and tridents and clubs, everything flying towards him. There is nothing there. So he pushed away the illusion of the yakshas, and then he mounted on his attack. And his attack was merciless. He was very, very, he was a warrior, very capable warrior. And in the Bhagavatam, in the first canto, we hear the story of Parikshit Maharaj. So Parikshit Maharaj, very capable administrator and king. He's the grandchild of Arjuna, the heir of the Pandavas. And Parikshit Maharaj was reigning the kingdom in peace, But a warrior, of course, is powerful, And warriors should be self-controlled, charitable. He's a protector. And he suddenly got the message that, some unscrupulous guy dressed like a king was harming animals, was killing a bull, So immediately he's like, yes, Not yes that a bull is being killed, but give me an option to fight. So he was ready, He was ready. He was more than ready. Is described. He was happy, at the opportunity to use his abilities of a warrior. Even he was a just, peaceful king. When the opportunity came to chastise somebody who was doing something wrong, he actually welcomed, that opportunity. So in a similar way, Dhruva Maharaj, went on a heavy attack on the yakshas and basically decimated them, And he was not stopping, So at the beginning of this chapter, we hear now how he was about to employ the Narayana Astra. So Astra, Shastra means scripture, and Astra means weapon. And there's a relation also between the two, because just like with a sword, you can cut yourself through a bush, for example. Like if you ever lived in a jungle. I lived 1 year in Brazil. ISKCON had a very nice farm in the Amazon jungle. It was named New Jarikanda because Jarikanda is the forest where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced with all the forest animals. So this farm in the Amazon jungle was named New Jarikanda. And if you didn't walk a path for a month, then it was a wall of green. So you need a machete, like a long sword, a big knife, and then you can cut through and you can go again. So whenever you want to go anywhere in the jungle, you need to take your machete. Otherwise, you're not going very far, or you will be cut by all the vines and sharp bamboos or etc. So in a similar way, knowledge, the Shastra, is the knowledge, the wisdom, the guidance that we need to escape the jungle of material existence. And in this verse, the word is used here, Brahma Nirvana Richati. Brahma Nirvana Richati. So Brahma Nirvana Richati, or especially Richati means to achieve, and Brahma Nirvana might be understood as impersonal liberation. So Brahma Nirvana, Brahman is the word there, and Nirvana, of course, means out of the forest. Nirvana, the vana, the forest. Nirvana. So through knowledge, we can exit that forest. We need knowledge, we need Shastra. Equipped with Shastra, you can cut yourself through the forest, and achieve Nirvana. But interestingly, Srila Prabhupada here is translating Nirvana as spiritual bliss. So he's not translating it literally, like Nirvana, no forest, or beyond material existence, but spiritual bliss. So this might be confusing for some people, Nirvana. Why is Nirvana spiritual bliss? Because the material reality is known as Jada Ananda. So there is Jada Ananda. Jada Ananda is the pleasure we can experience through sensory perception. We use our senses to attach them to the fitting sense objects that attract them. Like form attracts the eyes, and air touches the skin, and etc. So the senses are attracted to sense objects, and we have a very strong impulse, of course, to enjoy through the senses. But if you have a little bit wisdom, and life experience, you understand that's not the ultimate happiness. Because very often our senses are very expectant, and at the end, the whatever pleasure you might achieve is not exactly what you wanted. Very often we will be frustrated, and we will realize that in the material world, very often, if not in most cases, the pleasure is actually in the anticipation. So very strong anticipation. It's like children always ask, when is my birthday? When is my birthday? When is my birthday? When is my birthday? How much longer for my birthday? And they're getting so excited, almost getting a fever, like a week before their birthday. And they're so looking for, and then the birthday comes, and then their friends come, and then big chaos. It's crying and everybody's fighting, and I've seen it a few times. Or sometimes just overwhelmed, like Charo had his birthday, and he got so overwhelmed, and he didn't want to go out to meet his friends because it was too much, So that's the nature of Jada Ananda. It's an expectation. It seems something real, and the reason why it does not satisfy us, even if it meets your expectation, then it doesn't last. And the analogy that is given is, of course, the analogy of the reflection on water. So you see in the water a reflection of a juicy, beautiful, golden, red mango. You have all the anticipation for that mango, but when you touch it, it's just a reflection. So there's no substance. Everything in this world is lacking substance. It's just matter. It's just material elements, atoms, neutrons. Making a semblance of solidity. But I know if you remember, maybe in physics, you might have. There's this famous experiment. I forgot what the name was, but there's this gold plate, and you can shoot. I forgot exactly which particles, and 99 or 95% of all particles fly through, because this is all empty. It has no real substance. And it can very easily vanish, it can be burned, and then it becomes ashes, always transforming. So because everything is temporary, undergoes constant transformation, it lacks substance, it will not satisfy the self. So Jadananda will not satisfy the self. Once you understood that this situation is not, lasting, we have the ability by understanding, by observation, by contemplation, to seek something deeper and higher. So, and that's called the Jnana Marga, or the path of seeking liberation. So, in the first pace, like Srila Prabhupada was saying here, the karmis, they only seek to give pleasure to their senses. So that's Jadananda. You just try to enjoy the senses somehow. So that's karmis. Karmi means, you're very much trying by your, best ability, to be successful in this world, to buy, you look on YouTube, the most expensive houses, 40 million. Yeah, that's kind of good. I should get that one probably, So I have to work a little bit harder to get this house, So that's the idea of a karma, to work hard, through your actions, enjoy. And more elevated is the jnani. So the jnani is using his intellect, knowledge, ability to observe, to discriminate, to distinguish temporary, external elements, and seeking something deeper. And the basic process that is mentioned is the neti process. So not the neti you use in Ayurveda to put some salt in your nose, but neti, not this, not that. This is not substantial, this is also not substantial, this is not substantial. And by exclusion, trying to dissect what remains. That should be the self, who you really are, Brahman. So once you have self-realization, you reach the Brahma Bhuta stage, where you have realization, understanding that I am not this material body, I'm an eternal spiritual entity. That is called Brahmananda. And it's called also Atmarama. So you are happy within yourself. Within this world, we always need something. You need money, you need something to eat, you need something to drink, you need attention, you need, something. You always need something. And if you're not getting it, you're in trouble. You will suffer. So when you achieve the Brahma Bhuta stage, you don't need anything. You're happy by yourself. Atmarama. Very nice. So in German, there's a very nice saying, wunschlos glücklich. Wishless happy. So as long as you have wishes, you're not truly happy because you're lacking something. Something is missing. So Brahmananda is that stage where everything is, from within you are satisfied. And this is basically Brahma Nirvanam. Brahma Nirvanam, you're blissful. Why? Because you don't need anything. As long as you need something, there's a problem. So the moment where you don't need anything means you are blissful. So in that sense, you could say Brahma Nirvanam means spiritual bliss, unlimited spiritual bliss. Brahma is translated as unlimited, and Nirvana as spiritual bliss. Unlimited spiritual bliss can be achieved. But of course, beyond Brahma Nirvanam, there is something more, and that's Premananda. Premananda is that based on the Brahma Bhuta platform, with the basic, you could say, substantiated, solidified realization that I am Brahman, now you approach the Supreme Person. And in that relationship, prema. If there is love in that relationship, that prema is not material. So there is a few examples of great sages like the 4 Kumaras or Shukadeva Goswami, very elevated Brahmavadis. They were completely Brahman realized, satisfied in themselves. Atmarama. So there's a verse in the Bhagavatam, the Atmarama verse, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discusses this verse very extensively. Because the key to understand spiritual and material reality is in that verse. So Atmarama is somebody who's happy within himself. Not Atmarama is somebody who's trying to enjoy through the senses, externally. But once somebody achieves that position of Atmarama, and something that agitates the emotions of somebody who's so equiposed, this cannot be material. You understand? So if somebody who is completely equiposed, completely Brahman realized, completely transcendental, he doesn't need anything, and then he hears, smells, something that agitates him, that cannot be material because he's beyond any material needs. So this is the proof that spiritual reality, or the form of the Lord ultimately, the personality of the Lord, the emotions in relationship with the Lord, are not material. They are spiritual. And there's a few examples of great sages, like Shukadeva Goswami is the son of Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas. Shukadeva Goswami had such a clear understanding that Jarananda or material bliss is futile that he did not want to be born. It's described. He was conscious in the womb, conscious enough to not want to be born. So the mother of Shukadeva Goswami actually carried him, is described for 9 years, or maybe even 12 years. There's two descriptions. But in any case, longer than usual. Shukadeva Goswami did not want to come out of the womb. And he only came out on the behest of Krishna himself. Krishna asked him, come out. So he came out of the womb and immediately left home. Shukadeva Goswami, born and straight away he left home. And his father was trying to catch him. Vyasadeva himself was running behind his son, and he was straight into the jungle he went. They couldn't find him. He was lost. And then Vyasadeva understood. He's completely. He doesn't need anything. He just wants to focus on be by himself, meditate. No sentimental attachment. No papa, mama. So he was So he understood the only way I can catch him, I can find him, is if I give him a higher taste. So that's also the formula given in the Bhagavad Gita, param drishtva nivartante. So if we have an experience of a higher taste, we can give up something lower. So that also applies to if because many of us probably will not reach Brahma Nirvana, complete, Atmaram position. But already in our position, we can strive to engage our senses in the service of Rishikesha. So one of the names of Krishna or Vishnu is Rishikesh, which means he's the master of the senses. If we engage our senses in the service of his senses, we become spiritually qualified. Our senses become purified. And the senses that before were materially inclined become inclined and attached spontaneously. It's called raga nuga. Our raga, our emotions, our desires are all directed towards serving the Supreme Lord. So this is applicable at any stage, actually. If you are a beginner, if you are advanced jnani or yogi, if you take shelter of the Supreme Lord through the process of bhakti yoga, you will experience a higher taste. And this taste is not only higher than material pleasure, this taste is even higher than liberation itself. And the proof is Shukadeva Goswami. He was meditating in the forest, nobody could find him. And then Vyasadeva sent his disciples reciting the Bhagavat, Krishna Lila, all the Sanskrit verses. They were singing the Sanskrit verses of the Krishna Lila in the forest. And Shukadeva Goswami was meditating. He heard that and he was like, wow, that's amazing. What are they talking about? So the descriptions of Krishna's pastimes was the only thing that attracted him. Because anything material would not attract him. So therefore we should understand that the pastimes of Krishna, especially the pastimes of Krishna with the gopis, they're not material. Many people misunderstand it and think it's some material paramour, but it is transcendental. It is Madhurya Lila. It's the highest form, the Adi Rasa, the original taste, and it's completely spiritual. It's not material. It's not tinged with egoism and gunas. There's no tinge of passion or ignorance. Not even material goodness. It is pure transcendental reality. And this we can actually experience also within this material reality. And the word is given here is Jivan Mukta. So Jivan Mukta. Jivan Mukta means that while you are embodied, while you have a material body, you have a material mind, you can still already be liberated. While embodied, liberated, Jivan Mukta. Which is opposed by Vimuktamaninas. So Vimuktamaninas is when you think you're liberated, but actually you are completely engrossed. So Jivan Mukta is very much, you don't need to die in other words, you don't need to die and go to heaven to experience, the kingdom of God. Today morning, a short clip was suggested to me of Karamakana Maharaj, and he was talking exactly about this realization he had, that the entire spiritual reality is within. The whole process of spiritual practice is called Antaranga Shakti. We are taking shelter of the internal reality. Bahiranga is the external reality. So this is a very easy, practical direction also. If you are trying to become happy by taking things from outside, using them, buying them, controlling them, anything that's coming from outside, Bahiranga Shakti, material, external energy. Antaranga Shakti is internal. Everything is within. The Atma, the Paramatma, and where the Paramatma is there, all the Sarva Shaktis are there, the entire spiritual reality is there. So by meditation, by introspection, by having the right attitude, even we might be externally active in this world, our heart, our consciousness is anchored in internal meditation and appreciation of the Supreme. Okay, so we'll stop here. Maybe there are some questions, comments, queries, corrections, anything. Okay. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Yep. Ist doch eine Frage. Gibst du ein Mikrofon? Geht es nicht?
Ja, man weiß ja, er ist in den Dschungel gegangen.
Wer ist in den Dschungel gegangen?
Ja, Shukadev Goswami, oder?
Okay.
Und, aber was hat er danach gemacht? Was ist so in seinem Leben passiert? Oder gibt es da Berichte? Weil er ist ja quasi, soweit ich weiß, derjenige, der Parikshit Maharaj das Bhagavatam weitergegeben hat, oder?
Shukadeva Goswami hat natürlich von seinem Vater Vyasadev, sorry, I speak English. So, du hast das auf Deutsch gefragt?
Yeah.
So the question was in German. So what happened, what did Shukadeva Goswami do? What's his life story? So Shukadeva Goswami, like you just mentioned, he was born and then he was attracted by his father back to the ashram by the Krishna Lila. Then he was trained by his father. But very soon again he wandered. It's described in the first canto of the Bhagavatam. We have this extensive description how he traveled across the world or India through forests and mountains and villages. He traveled all over the place. But he was an avaduta. He was still like a completely transcendental person. So he was not wearing anything. So it was like Naga Baba. So he was naked, like there's one dharmic tradition, the Jains, the Jain sadhus also, they walk naked, and Naga Babas also, they're known to walk naked, and Shukadeva Goswami also, I forgot the name in Sanskrit, but the name is, they call themselves, dressed with air, their dress is air. That's the cloth they use, Very practical. Don't need to wash it. So, dressed with air. And Shukadeva Goswami was walking like this, and he was very beautiful. He was very young, 12, 16 years old. He had very long arms, he said lotus eyes, and he had a dark complexion, similar like Krishna. Long, black hair, and he was naked and he was very attractive. He was walking all over the place, and many children and young girls actually that they were following him, and they were making fun of him, because they could see that he was somehow detached of this world. Whatever they did, he wouldn't care. They would make a joke at him, or they will throw something at him, and he would just not react. He was, established in an internal, consciousness. So it is described that Shukadeva Goswami, after wandering, through so many places, he always had some, especially children, and young girls, following him, making fun of him, but still they were mesmerized by him. And he reached the place where Parikshit Maharaj, who was the emperor of the world, he had been cursed to die within 7 days. So with this death notice, he realized he should, renounce his kingdom. He should focus on the goal of life. So he retired immediately from his kingdom, handed over to his son. He invited all the sages and brahmanas and sadhus to guide him, what to do. That's the question, one of the questions of the Bhagavatam. What to do when you are dying, And the conclusion is, of course, we're all dying, So what should we all do, What's the meaning of life, So that was the question that was posed, and all the sages were gathering, And they could sense this is something very special. So it is described from all the 3 lokas, higher, lower, middle planetary systems, sages, yogis, rishis. They all assembled there to hear and maybe give advice. So there's the emperor, who now is wearing very simple cloth. He has renounced. Thousands of sages, assembled. And Shukadeva Goswami enters, into that arena, surrounded by all this, kids and girls making fun and, jumping around and laughing, And the entire assembly, they immediately recognize the exalted position of Shukadeva Goswami. So they all raise and offer respects, And the children are shocked, The girls are shocked, like, I thought he's just some funny, crazy guy, So they all run away. And Shukadeva Goswami is then offered, the main seat and speaks the Bhagavatam. So much is known, so much I've read. Yes. Anything else? Okay, yeah.
Und zwar hatte ich gelesen, heute früh, dass Paramatma einen schweren Unfall hatte und liegt in der Klinik.
Unser Paramatma?
Ja.
Aus München?
Ja.
Oh.
Und hat sich ein paar Mal die Hand gebrochen und die linke Hand, also es geht ihm gar nicht gut.
Oi.
Ja.
Ein Autounfall, oder?
Ja, also ein schwer, mit dem Auto.
Okay. Paramatma Krishna Prabhu is a very senior devotee. He's originally from Moldavia, small Soviet republic, squeezed between Ukraine and Romania, and he was an officer. He was an officer in the Soviet army, and also European kung fu master, and then he became a devotee. And he's the best book distributor in Germany since many, many years. So if you pray for him, maybe you will get some of the punya he has. Yes, Hare Krishna. Paramatma Krishna Prabhu ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.